My daughter told me. She wanted her stepdad to walk her down the aisle after I offered to pay for the wedding. When I asked her why, she said, "It's not about you, Dad. Stop making this special day about your ego." I just put the phone down. That was 9 months ago. Last week, she stood in my driveway in her wedding dress, crying so hard the neighbors called to check on me. When my daughter was 12, her mother cheated on me and married the man she cheated with. I hated my ex-wife with a passion at that time and wanted to get as far as away from her, but I didn't. I wanted my daughter to grow up in a normal environment and not surrounded by hate everywhere. So I split custody with my ex-wife and made sure that our daughter's mental health wouldn't be affected. We never told her about the cheating as a way to protect her. My ex's new husband quickly became her stepdad, and I didn't have a problem with it. Whenever my daughter would come back after spending time at their house, I would just be happy that she had fun. She would tell me how fun her new stepdad was and that she loved him, which was cute in my opinion. I still had to work a lot of hours, but I made sure to spend proper time with her. For her 17th birthday, I chipped in with her mom and got her a new car. I do make more money than she and her husband, so I paid more than her, but it wasn't a big deal. She absolutely loved it and thanked her for it. I thought it was a bit weird that she didn't offer me a thank you even though we had both paid for it, but I didn't dwell on it. After she turned 18, she began spending more and more time at her mom's house, but I was confident in the way I had raised her and trusted her to make her own adult decisions. As a result, she got a lot of independence from my side and basically did what she wanted. I didn't maintain friendly contact with her mom outside of what my daughter was doing, so I don't know how she spent her time there. But little did I know, I was allowing my ex-wife to steal my daughter away. Anyway, I helped her get into the best college in our city and fully paid her tuition so she wouldn't have to get a job. That way, she could focus on her academics or whatever it was that she wanted to do in life. Looking back, there was once again a lack of gratitude from her side, but I never asked for a thanks. I did what I did because I wanted to. She is 26 now, living in her own house, and was just proposed to by the love of her life, whom she luckily met in college. I was so happy for her and called her to congratulate her. During that call, I also offered to pay for her wedding because it was going to be her special day. I knew her now, fiancé was a good man and would take good care of her, so I wanted to give her away in style. She was very excited to hear that and said that I just made her even more happy. She began planning a destination wedding in Italy with the large budget that I had provided. But then, a couple days later, she called me to tell me the worst news of my life. She wanted her stepdad to walk her down the aisle instead of me. I obviously didn't agree to it and asked her why. I loved her a lot and wanted to do this for her, and she had absolutely no reason to walk with another man. But she began telling me that it's not a big deal and that it's just something he wants to do. I said that I also want to do it and that I also have the right to do it since I'm her actual father. She began screaming at me, telling me to calm down even though I didn't even raise my voice. She said that it was her choice and she had decided on her stepdad and that I didn't have a say in it. I didn't hear anything after that because my mind had shut down. I just put the phone down and desperately tried to hold my tears back. I have no idea why she would do this. I gave her everything and made sure she was happy and never neglected. Heck, I even kept in contact with the woman who broke my heart. I got texts from my ex-wife calling me a horrible person and that I was ruining my daughter's wedding by making unreasonable demands. I screenshotted it and sent it to my daughter, thinking that she would apologize for what her mother had said. But to my shock, she agreed with that statement and that I should leave her alone. So, in her mind, me asking to be her dad was an unreasonable demand. After a few more hours of crying, my eyes had really opened and I had come to a decision. I decided that I would no longer be paying for the wedding. I knew that they would not be able to afford a destination wedding without my support, but I didn't care. My daughter didn't seem to want me there at all, so why would I pay for something that I can't even attend? But after I sent that text, my phone began blowing up. My ex was suddenly very apologetic about her behavior. My daughter began saying she didn't mean what she said and that it was all a joke. She said that of course I can walk her down the aisle if I agree to still pay for my wedding in Italy. However, I just texted her this: "Don't worry, I don't want to buy your love with money. I will leave you alone, just like you wanted." That was the last message I sent to her, and a few weeks passed by. Of course, she and her mother kept texting me, saying that I am a horrible person for backing out of paying like that. Some texts made me laugh though, so I never blocked them. They even got other family members and friends to text me and ask me to take back my words, but I ignored everyone. And today, I finally replied to my daughter's countless texts. I sent her a simple message with a photo attached. It was me sitting in a grief counseling session, surrounded by other parents who looked just as lost as I felt. The text read, "I'm learning that real love can't be bought. I hope someday you learn what you lost wasn't the money." My hands shook as I hit send. For weeks, I'd been attending these sessions, trying to understand how I'd failed so spectacularly as a father. The counselor kept telling me I hadn't failed, that sometimes children take advantage of the parent who gives the most. But sitting there in that circle of broken parents, I couldn't help but feel like the biggest fool of them all. The response came within seconds. Sophia called immediately, but I let it ring. Then came the barrage of texts. She was crying. She was sorry. She didn't mean any of it. Could we please talk? Her mother joined in too, suddenly concerned about my mental health, worried about what people would think if they knew I was in counseling because of this. this. That last part made me laugh. Linda was worried about appearances, as always. She'd spent 14 years painting me as the boring, workaholic father, while she and Derek got to be the fun parents. Now she was concerned about what people would think. I blocked both their numbers. The wedding was in 3 days. From what I'd heard through mutual friends, they'd had to cancel Italy and book a local venue instead. The guest list had been cut from 200 to 50. Sophia's dream wedding had become a rushed affair at a country club. Part of me felt guilty, but a bigger part reminded me that this was the consequence of her choices. My phone rang again. This time it was James, Sophia's fiancé. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He told me he was calling without Sophia's knowledge because he needed to understand what had happened. His family was confused about why the wedding had been downsized, and Sophia kept changing her story. First, she said I'd had a financial emergency, then that I was being controlling, then that it was all a misunderstanding. I told him the truth, all of it. How Sophia had wanted Derek to walk her down the aisle after I'd offered to pay for everything. How she'd called my desire to walk her down the aisle an unreasonable demand. How she'd only backtracked when the money disappeared. James was quiet for a long time. Then he asked me something that caught me off guard. Has she always been like this? I thought about it, really thought about it, and the answer was yes. The car she'd only thanked her mother for, the college tuition she'd never acknowledged, the years of birthday and Christmas gifts that went unmentioned while she gushed over whatever Derek had given her. The pattern had always been there. I'd just been too blind to see it. I told James he seemed like a good man and that I hoped he and Sophia would be happy. But I also warned him to be careful. A person who could so easily dismiss their own father might one day dismiss a husband just as easily. He thanked me and hung up. I wondered if the wedding would still happen. 2 days before the wedding, my sister called. She'd been invited and wanted to know if I was going. When I said no, she tried to convince me to reconsider. Family was family, she said. Sophia was young and had made a mistake. Couldn't I forgive her? I asked my sister a simple question. If your child told you that wanting to walk them down the aisle was an unreasonable demand, how would you feel? She didn't have an answer. The day before the wedding, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went through old photo albums. There was Sophia at 5, grinning gap-toothed at the camera while sitting on my shoulders. At 8, proudly showing off the science fair project we'd built together. At 12, right before the divorce, hugging me tight at her birthday party. When had I lost her? Was it when Linda left? When Derek entered the picture? Or was it a slow erosion, each year of trying to buy her love with money instead of demanding her respect? I found a photo from her high school graduation. She was beaming, diploma in hand, standing between Derek and Linda. I wasn't in the photo. I'd been the one taking it, of course, always on the outside, documenting her life instead of being part of it. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the wedding happening the next day. My daughter would walk down the aisle with another man, a man who'd entered her life through betrayal, a man who'd never sacrificed anything for her, a man she'd chosen over me. The morning of the wedding, I woke up with a strange sense of peace. I made myself breakfast, went for a run, and then sat down to write Sophia a letter. Not an email or a text, but an actual letter. I wanted her to have something physical, something she couldn't delete in a moment of anger. I wrote about the day she was born, how tiny she'd been in my arms. I wrote about teaching her to ride a bike, staying up all night when she had the flu, the pride I'd felt at every milestone. I wrote about how I'd stayed in a city I hated just to be near her, how I'd swallowed my pride and pain every time I had to interact with Linda, how I'd worked 60-hour weeks to afford her college tuition. But I also wrote about my mistakes, how I'd confused money with love, how I'd been so afraid of being the mean parent that I'd never set boundaries, how I'd let her treat me like an ATM instead of a father because I was terrified of losing her. I ended the letter with this: I will always love you, Sophia, but I'm done trying to buy that love in return. When you're ready for a real relationship, one built on mutual respect and not transactions, you know where to find me. Until then, I wish you all the happiness in the world. Love, Dad. I mailed it to her house, knowing she'd get it after the honeymoon. Around noon, when I knew the ceremony would be starting, I did something for myself. I went to a nice restaurant, ordered an expensive meal, and toasted to my freedom. Freedom from the exhausting game of trying to win my daughter's love. Freedom from the constant comparisons to Derek. Freedom from feeling like a failure. My phone stayed silent. I'd blocked enough numbers that the flying monkeys couldn't reach me anymore. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. That evening, I got a knock on my door. It was my neighbor, looking concerned. He said a young woman had been sitting in a car outside my house for the past hour, crying. He wondered if everything was okay. I looked out the window. It was Sophia, still in her wedding dress. For a moment, I considered going out there, but then I remembered all the times I'd rushed to fix things for her, to make her problems go away with my checkbook. This time, she needed to figure it out herself. I thanked my neighbor and went back inside. An hour later, I heard the car drive away. The next morning, I woke to find my lawn covered in wedding flowers, white roses, baby's breath, and lilies, the expensive arrangements from what should have been Sophia's Italian wedding reception. They were scattered across my driveway like accusations, some still in their crystal vases, others trampled into the grass. A note was tucked under my windshield wiper. Since you ruined everything, you can have these. S. I spent an hour cleaning up the mess, my back aching as I bent to collect cracked each stem. Mrs. Chen from next door watched from her window, and I could only imagine what she was thinking. The whole neighborhood probably knew by now. As I hauled the last garbage bag to the curb, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of Sophia at her reception, mascara streaking down her face as she danced with Derek. The caption read, "Look what you did to your daughter. She cried through her whole wedding. I hope you're proud of yourself." No signature, but I recognized Linda's vindictive style. I deleted it and went inside to make coffee. My hands were steady now, no longer shaking like they had been for weeks. The grief counselor had warned me about this, the waves of guilt that would crash over me at unexpected moments. But she'd also taught me to recognize manipulation when I saw it, and Linda had been manipulating me through Sophia for 14 years. That afternoon, my brother Ben called. He rarely reached out, so I knew this was serious. He told me that Linda had been calling around to the entire family, spinning a story about how I'd had some kind of mental breakdown. According to her version, I'd become obsessed with controlling Sophia's wedding and had cruelly withdrawn funding at the last minute out of spite. She'd even suggested I might be having financial troubles and had used the wedding as an excuse. "She's telling everyone you're in therapy because you're unstable," Ben said, his voice tight with anger. "Aunt Ailey is ready to stage an intervention." I laughed. Actually laughed. Let her. Maybe Aunt Ailey can explain to me why a father wanting to walk his daughter down the aisle is considered a mental breakdown. Ben was quiet for a moment. "Look, I know Sophia hasn't always been grateful, but this is her wedding, Marcus. Maybe you could what? Continue being an ATM? Smile while she chooses the man who destroyed our family over me? Derek didn't destroy your family. Linda did, and Sophia knows that now," I said quietly. The silence on the other end told me I'd said too much. Ben didn't know about the letter I'd written Sophia, the one where I'd finally told her the truth about the divorce, about finding Linda in our bed with Derek, about the months of couples therapy I'd tried while Linda was still seeing him, about how I'd swallowed all that pain and humiliation for 14 years to protect Sophia's relationship with her mother. "You told her?" Ben's voice was barely a whisper. "She's 26 years old. She deserved to know why her family really fell apart." After Ben hung up, I sat in my empty house and wondered if I'd done the right thing. The counselor had advised against revealing the affair in anger, but I hadn't been angry when I wrote that letter. Just tired. Tired of being the villain in Linda's carefully crafted narrative. 3 days after the wedding, James showed up at my door. He looked exhausted, his usually neat appearance disheveled. I invited him in and offered him coffee, which he accepted gratefully. "The wedding was a disaster," he said without preamble. "Sophia cried through the entire ceremony. Linda spent the reception telling everyone who would listen about what a monster you are. Derek got hammered and made a speech about being Sophia's real dad and how blood doesn't make family." I winced. "I'm sorry you had to deal with that." "Are you?" James looked at me intently. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you knew exactly what would happen when you pulled that funding." "What would you have done?" I asked. "If the person you loved most in the world told you that your biggest dream for them was an unreasonable demand." James stared into his coffee. "She didn't mean it that way." "How did she mean it then?" He didn't answer. Instead, he told me about what happened after the ceremony, how Sophia had gotten my letter during the reception. I'd timed it to arrive that day deliberately. How she'd locked herself in the bathroom for an hour. How when she came out, she'd confronted Linda in front of everyone, demanding to know if it was true about the affair. "Linda denied it at first," James said. "But Sophia had already called her Aunt Ailey to confirm. When she realized Sophia knew the truth, Linda tried to spin it. Said you were controlling and cold, that she'd found love with Derek, that these things happen. And Sophia bought it?" "No." James set down his cup. "That's why I'm here. Sophia's been different since the wedding. She won't talk to Linda or Derek. She's been going through old photos, old cards you sent her. She found a box of letters you wrote her during the divorce that Linda never gave her." My chest tightened. I'd written Sophia a letter every week during those first brutal months after Linda left, telling her I loved her, that none of it was her fault, that I would always be her dad no matter what. I'd given them to Linda during custody exchanges, trusting her to pass them along. I should have known better. "She wants to see you," James said. "No, Marcus. I meant what I wrote. When she's ready for a real relationship, not just damage control, she can reach out. But I'm done being the parent who always caves, who always forgives without getting any respect in return." James stood to leave, then turned back. "For what it's worth, I think you did the right thing. She needed this wake-up call. I just hope it's not too late." After he left, I found myself thinking about that last part. Was it too late? Could you rebuild a relationship that had been transactional for so long? The grief counselor said it was possible, but it required both people to change, and I wasn't sure Sophia knew how to see me as anything other than a wallet with feelings. A week passed, then two. The flying monkeys gradually gave up, though I still got the occasional guilt-trip text from random relatives. Linda's campaign to paint me as unstable had backfired spectacularly once the truth about the affair came out. Apparently, Aunt Ailey had taken it upon herself to set the record straight with the entire family. Derek, the fun stepdad, was suddenly Derek, the homewrecker, and Linda's victim narrative had crumbled. I heard through Ben that Sophia and James had postponed their honeymoon, that she was in therapy now, trying to understand how she'd become so entitled, that she'd cut contact with Linda and Derek, at least temporarily. Part of me felt vindicated. Another part just felt sad. 3 weeks after the wedding, I came home to find a package package on my doorstep. Inside was a photo album I'd never seen before. The first page had a note in Sophia's handwriting. I found this in Mom's attic. I thought you should have it. I opened it and felt my breath catch. It was full of photos from Sophia's childhood, but not the ones Linda had shared over the years. These were all the photos of just Sophia and me. The two of us at the beach when she was 7, building sandcastles, teaching her to ride a bike in the park, our camping trip when she was 10, her face covered in s'more chocolate, dancing with her at the father-daughter dance when she was 13, just months before the divorce. Every photo Linda had hidden away, erased from the narrative she'd created where Derek had always been the fun parent and I'd been the absent workaholic. The truth was there in Sophia's face in every picture, the pure joy of a daughter who adored her father. I sat on my couch and cried, not the desperate, broken tears from weeks ago, but something cleaner, grief for all the years we'd lost, for the relationship Linda had poisoned, for the daughter I'd tried so hard to buy back instead of just being her father. The next day, I did something I hadn't done in years. I took a day off work, not to handle some crisis or attend a school event, but just to think. I drove to the lake where Sophia and I used to go fishing when she was little. The same dock was there, weathered but standing. I sat on the end with my feet dangling over the water and tried to imagine a future where Sophia and I could sit here again, not as ATM and withdrawal, but as father and daughter. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me look. Dad, I know you said to contact you when I'm ready for a real relationship. I don't know if I'm ready yet, but I'm trying. I've been seeing a therapist. She says I have a lot of work to do. I found all your letters, the ones from the divorce. Mom kept them in a box in the attic. I've read each one a dozen times. I'm so sorry. Not because of the money or the wedding, but because I can see now what I lost, what I threw away. I love you, Sophia. I stared at the text for a long time. Then I typed back, I love you too. Always have, always will. Take your time. I'll be here when you're ready. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was a start. A month later, I was back in grief counseling. The topic that week was rebuilding after betrayal, and I found myself sharing more than usual. I told them about the photo album, about Sophia's text, about the hope and fear warring in my chest. I want to believe she's really changing, I said, but I've been fooled before. How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? An older woman named Nishi, who'd been attending longer than me, spoke up. You don't. That's the hard part about rebuilding trust. You have to be willing to be hurt again. But this time, you go in with boundaries, with self-respect. You can love your daughter without being her doormat. After the session, the counselor pulled me aside. You've made remarkable progress, Marcus. When you first came here, you couldn't even say Sophia's name without breaking down. Now you're talking about boundaries and self-respect. That's growth. It doesn't feel like growth. It feels like I'm barely holding it together. That's what growth feels like. Messy and uncertain and scary, but you're doing the work. That's what matters. On the way home, I stopped at the grocery store. In the checkout line, I saw Linda. She looked older, tired. The confident woman who'd blown up our family for passion and excitement now looked like what she was, a middle-aged woman facing the consequences of her choices. She saw me and froze. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the cereal aisle. Then she abandoned her cart and practically ran for the exit. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pain. Just a vague pity for the woman who'd had a good man and thrown him away for a fantasy. The opposite of love wasn't hate, I realized. It was indifference. When I got home, there was a car in my driveway. Not Sophia's. I recognized it as belonging to my nephew Nicky, Ben's son. He was sitting on my porch steps, looking uncomfortable. Uncle Marcus? I'm sorry to just show up, but I didn't know where else to go. I invited him in, noting his red eyes and shaking hands. Nicky was 22, in his last year of college. We'd always been close before the divorce drama consumed my life. It's my parents, he said. They're getting divorced. Dad cheated. Mom found out last week. And now they're using me and my sister as weapons against each other. Sound familiar? I made him tea and listened as he poured out his pain. His father, my brother, had apparently learned nothing from watching my marriage implode, the patterns repeating themselves across generations. How did you do it? Nicky asked. How did you keep from turning Sophia against Mom when she left? By sacrificing pieces of myself every day for 14 years, I said honestly. And look where it got me. She chose the man who destroyed our family over me. But you protected her. That has to count for something. Does it? I thought I was protecting her, but maybe I was just enabling Linda to poison her against me. Maybe if I'd fought harder, demanded equal treatment, set boundaries, maybe things would be different. Nicky stayed for dinner. As I cooked, he told me about his girlfriend, his plans after graduation, his fears about his parents' divorce, normal conversation with someone who saw me as a person, not a bank account. It was nice. After he left, I found myself thinking about patterns, how Linda's betrayal had created ripples that were still spreading, how my brother was now walking the same path I'd walked 14 years ago, how Nicky might one day face the same choices I'd faced with Sophia. That night, Sophia called. I almost didn't answer, but the therapy had taught me avoidance wasn't healing. Dad? Her voice was small, uncertain. I know you probably don't want to hear from me. I always want to hear from you, Sophia. I just want it to be real. She told me about her therapy sessions, how she was beginning to understand the dynamic Linda had created, pitting me against Derek for her affection, how she'd been trained to see love as transactional. Whoever gave the most, won. How she was trying to unlearn those patterns patterns. I've been so awful to you, she said, crying now. Not just about the wedding, for years, and you just kept loving me anyway. That's what parents do. No, she said firmly. That's what you do. Mom and Derek, their love always came with conditions. Perform correctly, and you get affection. But you loved me even when I didn't deserve it. You always deserved it. You just didn't always return it. We talked for an hour. Not about money or weddings or who wronged who, but about real things. Her fears about marriage after watching her parents' relationship implode. My regrets about working so much when she was young. The therapy we were both doing to heal from Linda's manipulation. When we hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. The next week in counseling, I shared the conversation. The group was cautiously optimistic, warning me about the dangers of moving too fast, of falling back into old patterns. But they also celebrated the progress, both mine and Sophia's. Boundaries, Nishi reminded me. Love with boundaries. I was learning what that meant. When Sophia texted asking if we could have lunch, I agreed, but chose the place and time. When she mentioned struggling with money now that Linda had cut her off financially for betraying her, I expressed sympathy but didn't offer to help. When she cried about missing her dream wedding, I acknowledged her pain without accepting blame. Baby steps, but steps forward nonetheless. The lunch was awkward at first. Sophia looked different, older somehow. The entitled princess who'd demanded Derek walk her down the aisle had been replaced by a young woman grappling with hard truths. I've been reading about narcissistic parents, she said, picking at her salad, about how they triangulate relationships, create golden children and scapegoats. I think Mom made Derek the golden parent and you the scapegoat, and I bought into it completely. It's not that simple. I made mistakes too. I should have fought harder for our relationship instead of just trying to buy your affection. But that's the thing. You weren't trying to buy my affection. You were showing love the only way Mom let you. Every time you tried to discipline me or set boundaries, she'd undermine you, paint you as the mean parent. I can see it now, looking back. We talked for 2 hours about the divorce, the affair, the years of manipulation, but also about good memories, the camping trips, the driving lessons, the late-night talks about boys and dreams and fears. Memories Linda hadn't been able to erase, just bury. When the check came, Sophia reached for it. I've got this, she said. It's not much, but I want to pay for something, to show you I value your time, not just your wallet. It was a small gesture, but it meant everything. Over the next few weeks, we began slowly rebuilding. Coffee here, a phone call there, always with boundaries, always with respect. James joined us sometimes, and I found myself genuinely liking my son-in-law. He was good for Sophia, grounded, honest, unwilling to enable her worst impulses. She's trying so hard, he told me one day when Sophia stepped away from the table. She's cut off Linda completely. Derek tried to reach out, play the concerned stepfather, but she shut him down. She's determined to be better. And you? How are you handling all this? It's been rough, he admitted. Finding out your wife has been lying to herself about her family for over a decade, but we're working through it. Couples counseling is helping. I thought about my own failed marriage, how I'd tried so hard to save it after Linda's betrayal. The difference was that Sophia wanted to change. Linda never had. 2 months after the wedding, I got an unexpected call from Derek. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Marcus, he said, his voice lacking its usual cocky confidence. I think we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. Linda left me. I sat down, genuinely shocked. What? She said I'm boring, that the excitement is gone. She's been having an affair with her personal trainer for 6 months. Ironic, right? I said nothing, processing this information. I just wanted to say, I get it now. What you went through, what we put you through. Sophia won't talk to me, and I understand why. I helped poison her against you. I thought I was being the cool stepdad, but I was just being a selfish prick who wanted to win. Why are you telling me this? Because you were right. At the wedding, when I gave that speech about being her real dad, the look on her face, she realized then what she'd done, what we'd all done to you. And now I'm getting a taste of what you felt 14 years ago. I could have been cruel, could have twisted the knife, thrown his words back in his face, but I just felt tired. Derek, I'm sorry Linda hurt you, but you and I, we're not going to be friends. We're not going to bond over shared pain. You helped destroy my family. The fact that karma came for you doesn't change that. I know. I wanted to apologize for what it's worth. It's worth something, I admitted. Good luck, Derek. I hung up and immediately called Sophia. She answered on the first ring. Dad, is everything okay? Derek just called. Your mother left him. Silence. Then, I know. She called me yesterday, wanting sympathy. Can you believe that? She wanted me to comfort her about leaving the man she destroyed our family for. What did you say? I told her she made her choices, and now she gets to live with them. Then I hung up and blocked her number. My daughter was learning boundaries too. The holidays were approaching, and for the first time in years, I was dreading them less. Sophia had asked, tentatively, if we could have Thanksgiving together. Just us, James and Ben's family. No Linda, no Derek, no drama. I know I don't deserve a seat at your table, she'd said, but I'd like to earn one. I'd agreed, with conditions. We'd cook together. No hiring caterers or me doing all the work. Everyone would contribute something, and we'd go around the table sharing what we were grateful for, a tradition Linda had always mocked as cheesy. The week before Thanksgiving, I was back in counseling. The group had become my anchor through all of this, and several members were facing their own holiday challenges. I'm nervous, I admitted. What if we fall back into old patterns? What if I see her struggling and just start writing checks again? Then you catch yourself and stop, Nishi said simply. Recovery isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware. You've come too far to go backward now. She was right. I had come far. From the broken man who'd sobbed through that first session to someone who could set boundaries with love. From the father who thought money could buy affection to one who understood that respect was priceless. Thanksgiving arrived gray and cold. I woke early to start the turkey, my mother's recipe that I hadn't made since the divorce. The familiar rhythm of cooking soothed my nerves. Sophia arrived first, carrying a homemade pie. I know it's ugly, she said, presenting a lopsided apple pie, but I made it myself. YouTube University came through. We cooked side by side, talking about everything and nothing. She told me about her job, her plans to go back to school for her master's degree. I told her about the counseling group, the book I'd started writing about recovering from parental alienation. I'm proud of you, she said suddenly, chopping vegetables, for standing up for yourself, for not letting me treat you like that anymore. I needed that wake-up call. I'm proud of you too, for doing the work to change. That takes real courage. Ben and his family arrived, including Nikki, who hugged me tight. Thanks for being there, he whispered. Dad's been impossible, but you helped me see I don't have to pick sides. James brought wine and a genuine warmth that helped ease any lingering awkwardness. As we sat around the table, I looked at the faces gathered there. Not the family I'd imagined when Sophia was born, but real and honest and present. When it came time for gratitudes, Sophia went last. She stood, tears already forming. I'm grateful for second chances, she said, for a father who loved me enough to stop enabling me, for the hardest lesson I ever learned, that love isn't measured in dollars or gifts or grand gestures. It's measured in showing up, in sacrifice, in truth. Dad, I'm grateful you showed me what real love looks like, even when it meant letting me fall. There wasn't a dry eye at the table. Later, as we cleaned up, Sophia pulled me aside. I have something for you. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check. Not a huge amount, but significant for someone just starting out. Sophia, no, it's the first payment, she said firmly, for my college tuition. I know it'll take me years to pay it all back, but I want to do this. I need to do this. Please let me. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. The entitled girl who'd wanted Derek to walk her down the aisle was gone. In her place stood a woman who understood that some debts weren't about money. Okay, I said, but we do this right. We'll set up a payment plan, something you can actually afford. And Sophia, this doesn't buy you anything. No special treatment, no emotional leverage. This is just you being an adult who pays her debts. I know, she smiled. That's exactly why I need to do it. As everyone prepared to leave, Sophia hugged me at the door. I love you, Dad. Really love you. Not because of what you can give me, but because of who you are. I'm sorry it took me so long to see it. I love you too, baby girl. Always have, always will. Watching her drive away, I felt something settle in my chest. Not completion. We still had a long way to go, but peace. The kind that comes from knowing you've done the right thing, even when it nearly broke you. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it, assuming it was Linda from a new phone, but I opened it instead. Mr. Marcus, this is Alexandra from your grief counseling group. I wanted to thank you for sharing your story. My daughter and I have been estranged for 3 years. After hearing your journey, I reached out to her. We're having coffee next week, boundaries and all. Thank you for showing me it's possible. I smiled, pocketing my phone. The ripples from that painful decision months ago were still spreading, but now they were creating healing instead of destruction. Inside, the house still smelled like turkey and pie. Evidence of family, of love, of new beginnings. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat in my favorite chair, thinking about the long road that had brought us here. My daughter had wanted her stepdad to walk her down the aisle. That choice had shattered us both, but from those pieces, we were building something new, something real, something that couldn't be bought or sold or manipulated. Just love. Complicated, messy, bounded love. The kind that was worth fighting for. 6 months passed. The texts from Alexandra had become a regular thing. Updates on her reconciliation with her daughter, questions about boundaries, celebrations of small victories. I'd become something of an unofficial mentor to several people from the grief counseling group, all of us navigating the choppy waters of rebuilding broken relationships. Sophia and I had settled into a rhythm. Weekly coffee dates, monthly dinners, always with clear boundaries. She'd started her master's program and was working part-time to cover her expenses. The monthly payments for her college tuition came like clockwork, small amounts that meant everything because they represented her commitment to change. Then one Tuesday morning, my phone rang at 6 a.m. Nobody calls with good news at that hour. It was James. Linda had been in a car accident. She was in the ICU, and it didn't look good. The personal trainer she'd left Derek for had already disappeared, and Derek himself was nowhere to be found. Despite everything, Sophia was listed as her emergency contact. I met them at the hospital. Sophia looked shell-shocked, clutching James's hand so tight her knuckles were white. When she saw me, she broke down. I don't know what to do, she sobbed. I haven't talked to her in months. I blocked her number, and now I held my daughter while she cried, feeling the strange weight of the moment. Linda had spent years poisoning our relationship, but she was still Sophia's mother. Complicated didn't begin to cover it. The next few days were a blur. Linda needed surgery, then another. The bills started piling up. She had no insurance. Apparently, the personal trainer had been bleeding her dry. Sophia was devastated, torn between anger at her mother and the basic human need to help. I can't afford this, she told me one evening, surrounded by medical bills. But I can't just let her. I don't know what to do. I made a decision that surprised us both. I paid for Linda's medical care. Not all of it, but enough to ensure she got the treatment she needed. Sophia stared at me in shock. Dad, no. After everything she did to you, I'm not doing it for her, I said simply. I'm doing it for you. So you don't have to choose between your principles and your mother's life. But Sophia, this is a one-time thing. I'm not getting pulled back into Linda's drama. This is about you being able to sleep at night. She cried again, but differently this time, like something had shifted inside her, seeing me extend grace to someone who'd shown me none. Linda recovered slowly. She was different when she woke up, smaller somehow, deflated. The personal trainer was gone, having emptied her accounts. Derek wouldn't return her calls. The empire she'd built on betrayal had crumbled completely. Sophia visited her once. I waited in the hospital cafeteria, drinking terrible coffee and wondering how we'd gotten here. When she came back down, her face was unreadable. She asked about you, Sophia said. Wanted to know if you were here. What did you tell her? The truth, that you paid for her surgery, that you did it for me, not her, that she burned that bridge so thoroughly there's nothing left but ash. We sat in silence for a moment. She also told me something else, Sophia continued, about the divorce. She said she's been thinking about it a lot lying in that bed. Dad, she said she knew I was starting to prefer you when I was 12. That's why she cheated. She wanted to blow everything up before she lost me to you. She wanted to be the victim so I'd take her side. I stared at my coffee. That's quite a revelation. She destroyed our family because she was jealous of her own daughter's relationship with her father. Sophia's voice was hollow. How do you forgive something like that? You don't have to, I said. Forgiveness isn't a requirement. Sometimes the best you can do is let go and move forward. Linda was transferred to a rehabilitation facility. Sophia made sure she was settled, then walked away. She didn't block her number this time, but she didn't answer when Linda called either. Some bridges, once burned, just stay burned. A month later, I got an unexpected call from Derek. Not about Linda, about a job. His company was looking for someone with my expertise, and would I consider consulting for them? The old me would have told him to go to hell, but I thought about Nishi's words about indifference being the opposite of love. Derek was just a guy now, a guy who'd learned some hard lessons, who was trying to rebuild his life post-Linda. I took the meeting. It was surreal, sitting across from him in a conference room, discussing quarterly projections and market strategies. Professional, distant. Two people who'd been connected by someone else's chaos, now just doing business. This is weird, he said during a break. Extremely, I agreed. For what it's worth, I really am sorry about everything. I know. Let's talk about the third quarter numbers. And we did, because that's what moving forward looks like sometimes. Not forgiveness, not friendship, just the simple act of not letting the past control your present. Sophia graduated from her master's program on a beautiful May afternoon. I sat in the audience with James, Ben's family, and even Aunt Ailey, who'd become one of Sophia's fiercest supporters after learning the truth about the divorce. When they called her name, Sophia walked across that stage with a confidence I'd never seen before. This wasn't the entitled girl who'd demanded a destination wedding, or the broken young woman who'd sat in her car outside my house in her wedding dress. This was someone who'd done the work, who'd earned her achievements. At the reception afterward, she pulled me aside. I have something for you. Another envelope. I started to protest, thinking it was another tuition payment, but she stopped me. Just open it. Inside were 2 tickets to Italy, Venice, specifically, the honeymoon destination she'd never gotten to visit. James and I have been saving, she explained. We want you to come with us. Not for the whole trip, she added quickly, seeing my expression. Just for a few days. We want to share it with you. Sophia, I can't. Yes, you can. Dad, you gave up so much for me. You stayed in a city you hated. You dealt with Mom for 14 years. You paid for everything and asked for nothing. Let me give you something, please. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, the woman she'd become, the journey we'd taken to get here. Okay, I said, but I'm paying for my own hotel. She laughed. Deal. 2 months later, I stood on a bridge in Venice, watching the sunset paint the canals gold. Sophia and James were at dinner, giving me some time to explore on my own. I thought about the strange path that had led me here. The pain, the betrayal, the breakdown, the rebuilding. My phone buzzed. A photo from Nicky. He was at his college graduation, beaming between his divorced parents who'd managed to stand next to each other for one photo. Progress comes in all forms. Another buzz. Nietzsche from the counseling group, sharing that her son had reached out after 2 years of silence. The ripples continuing to spread. I walked back to my hotel, past couples and families and tourists, all living their own complicated stories. Tomorrow, I'd have breakfast with my daughter and son-in-law. We'd see the sights, share some laughs, make new memories to layer over the old ones. My phone rang. Unknown number. This time, I didn't hesitate to answer. Mr. Marcus, this is Patricia from the hospital. I'm Linda's nurse. She wanted me to call you. She's not doing well. She's asking for you. I stood there on that beautiful Venetian street, holding my phone, feeling the weight of this moment. Tell her. I paused, thinking. Tell her I forgive her. Not for her sake, but for mine. Tell her Sophia is happy and successful and loved. Tell her she raised a daughter who learned how to change. That's her legacy. I'll tell her. Thank you. I hung up and kept walking. Sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is releasing them from the hold they have on your life. Linda had controlled my emotions for too long. Through anger, through Sophia, through manipulation. Now, standing in a city I'd never thought I'd see, I finally felt free. The next morning, over cappuccino and pastries, I told Sophia about the call. She listened quietly quietly, then reached across the table to take my hand. Are you okay? She asked. Yeah, I said, surprised to find it was true. I really am. Do you want to go back? If something happens? No, that chapter is closed. We're here together, making new memories. That's what matters. James raised his orange juice. To new chapters, Sophia and I echoed. We spent the day wandering through Venice, taking too many photos, eating too much gelato. Sophia insisted on buying lunch, proudly pulling out her credit card. I've got this, she said, echoing that first lunch we'd shared during our reconciliation. That evening, as we watched the sunset from the Rialto Bridge, Sophia leaned against my shoulder. Dad, thank you. For what? For loving me enough to let me fail, for having boundaries, for showing me what real love looks like. I know I said it at Thanksgiving, but I need you to know, I get it now. Love isn't about money or grand gestures. It's about showing up. It's about respect. It's about doing the hard things. You're welcome, baby girl. We stood there in comfortable silence, watching the city lights flicker on the water. Tomorrow, I'd fly home, and they'd continue their honeymoon. But tonight, we were just a father and daughter who'd found their way back to each other. My phone buzzed. A text from the hospital. Linda had passed peacefully that afternoon. I showed it to Sophia, who read it and nodded. How do you feel? I asked. Sad, she admitted, but also free. Is that terrible? No, it's honest. That's all we can be. The next morning, at the airport, Sophia hugged me tight. I love you, Dad. See you next week for coffee? Wouldn't miss it. Flying home, I thought about the journey we'd taken. From that horrible phone call where she'd chosen Derek to walk her down the aisle, through the pain and anger and grief counseling, to standing together on a bridge in Venice. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been pretty, but it had been real. Back home, I found a package waiting. Inside was a framed photo from Sophia's wedding. Not the official ones with Derek, but one James had taken with his phone. It showed Sophia in her wedding dress, standing in my driveway, looking at my house. On the back, she'd written, "The moment I realized what I'd lost, and the moment I decided to earn it back. Thank you for waiting for me. Love, Sophia." I hung it in my office, next to the photo of 5-year-old Sophia on my shoulders. The full story, beginning to end. Loss and redemption. The price of real love. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. Another parent from somewhere, somehow, who'd heard my story, asking how to set boundaries with love, how to stop enabling, how to heal. I typed back, start with respect, for yourself and for them. The rest follows. Because that's what I'd learned. Love without respect is just manipulation. Respect without boundaries is just enabling. But love with respect and boundaries, that's the kind that survives, the kind that rebuilds, the kind that's worth fighting for. My daughter had wanted her stepdad to walk her down the aisle. That choice had broken us both. But in the breaking, we'd found something neither of us expected. The chance to build something real. Something that couldn't be bought or sold or manipulated or destroyed. Just love. Complicated, messy, bounded, respectful love. The kind that was worth everything we'd paid to find it.